Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you joined us for our two-day Metals and Mining Conference. Our first presentation of the day is from Andean Silver. Please note you may submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. And you can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings by clicking Book a Meeting in the top toolbar. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Tim Lanery. He's the Chief Executive Officer, and Matthew Allen, he's the Chief Financial Officer of Andean Silver, which as of this week trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol ADSLF and on the ASX under the symbol ASL. Welcome, Tim and Matthew.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. We'll start off the presentation. Andean Silver has a sole project in Chile called the Cerro Bayo Silver Project. It's a long history, and we'll give you a brief overview. We've had the project for 2 years at the moment, and we've had significant growth and a few key milestones in the development history. So we'll get started. The project itself is located in southern Chile, so we're in the ASN region, Region 11, as you can see on the map down through there. The project itself has 9.8 million tonnes, 353 grams per tonne silver equivalent for 111 million ounces. Historically, it's mined over 120, 130 million ounces silver equivalent, so it's a quarter of a billion ounce district and growing. Of our resource, it's purely gold and silver on a 50-50 mixed basis. So it contains about 800,000 ounces of pure gold and about 47 million ounces of silver in that. Saying that, we do have mixed metals. So we do have the polymetals of zinc and lead and copper. And we also have VMS mineralization in copper as well on the district. The belt itself is about 400 square kilometers of land holding, consolidated over an area of rock called the Desierto Massif, which we'll touch on shortly. But that area body of rock stretches through Argentina to Chile, and it hosts such deposits as Cerro Negro for Newmont, Anglo Gold Ashanti, Cerro Vanguardia, and Hochschild Mining San Jose project, as well as numerous Pan-American silver projects. So the belt of rocks itself is tens and tens of million ounces of gold and silver hosted in it. The project itself, as mentioned, we've only had it for about 2 years. But the project itself was initially developed in 1995, so it's had a long, long life to it. It was originally built by Core Mining. It was their second ever asset that they owned. It then went through a number of hands before passing through to us. The team itself, I'll touch on in a moment, but we have a wide range of background on the board and senior management on site. Most of the senior management, apart from Matt and myself, are Chile-based. So I'd say 98% of the people of the company live and operate in South America. The company itself, we've just done a capital raise. We have about $42 million in the bank, Australian. So we're well funded through to the next stage of growth, which again, we'll touch on in a minute. Going into the people of the company first, myself, geologist by background, 19 years experience through Northern Star and Saracen Minerals, multi-billion-dollar companies here in Australia. Our chair, Dave Southam, is on the board of Ramelius Resources, as well as growing and developing a number of nickel projects and his own company, Cygnus Metals, which has just merged with Dork Copper in Chibougamau. Our CEO, Damon Kerber, worked for a number of major companies through South America. He has over 30 years experience as a geologist, and of that, 25 years in Latin America through Chile, Argentina, Brazil, Peru. Matt, our CFO, has had a lot of global experience working through the lithium, rare earth, and oil and gas industry. Alvaro, a general manager of operations, well experienced before joining us. He was general manager of KGHM, the very large Polish lignite producer, and before that, Asenko Mining, which is a mine development company for 6 years. Our environmental manager and permitting manager, Sophia, has just joined us in December. Before joining us, she was head of permitting for the Chilean government. So she knows what needs to happen, and she's trained most of the people in the department. So a very well-rounded team to get this asset into the next stage of its life. Just touch quickly on the corporate structure, covering by Euros, Canaccord, and SCP out of New York. As mentioned, our cash position is sitting about 42 million as of today after our capital raise. Market cap close of today is sitting at 257 million Australian at the moment, with only 183 million shares out. Some of the large holders that we have, Scotia Asset Management, 1832 is one of our largest holders, and then Sprott is on the register, as well as a lot of North American holders. Over the past year and a half, we've transitioned from a large Australian retail base to being well and truly sitting in about that 40 to 50% range of Australian and global institutions, and a lot of those out of North America. Project itself, as I said, it's 50% silver, 50% gold. The reason that we went down the route when we chose what key projects we want to look at, silver is in a structural deficit. As we see from 2021 through to 2024, production is sitting flat at 1 billion ounces of silver. We produce about 1.2 to 1.25. So we actually produce not enough silver for what we consume in the world in solar, medical, water purification, and electrical applications. Most of that on this yellow line you can see is coming from the audible vault stocks, and that's masking this deficit. When that vault stocks deplete and run out, then we're really going to have a very pronounced increase in silver price as a prediction. Getting now into the project. So over the next 12-month period, we're really going from being an explorer into that sort of next phase of growth, which is that looking at what a restart and a development project looks like. So we really have a triple track strategy right now. So we're starting the internal scoping study work. Most of our resources inferred, so we can't publish that scoping study. But what that scoping study is going to guide is what the next 12 months post that will look like. So what will our permitting process look like? What will a mine plan look like? And what work needs to be done over that next coming year to bring out a feasibility study to the market. At the same time, we have 3 drill rigs drilling. They're focusing mainly on all the near mine resources within that 1.5 kilometers of the processing facility that we have. So really growing the existing resource base to underpin a restart. And at the same time, we have a regional generative team, a lot of very smart geologists of ex-Yamana in South America that are walking the ground and doing this work to build a solid project pipeline that will underpin future resource growth and replenishment when we start mining in the future. So it's really a triple track strategy of development, resource growth, and project pipeline growth to underpin future mining. So just a bit of an overview of where the mine sits. So we sit on the Argentinian border and cover about 400 square kilometers, as mentioned. The project itself is broken into 2 districts, the Laguna Verde mine district, which hosts the Tatao open pit, as well as the processing facility and a lot of the high-grade undergrounds. And then the Cerro Bayo mining district, which hosts the original Cerro Bayo mines, Marcela, Guanaco, Raul, which were all mined by Core Mining in the late 90s and early 2000s. The site itself, we have a 500,000 tonne per annum processing facility. As you can see on this image, you see the TSF and the processing facility. So it's an active float plant, 500,000 tonnes per annum. It's on warm idle. We turn the mill over every week, flush the pumps. So it's actually on high level of rapid restart at the moment. There's about 30 years of mining history. We have permitted operations. So we have an environmental impact statement that was done on the mine back in the early 90s by Core Mining, which is still active. So that's a big tick nowadays that we have environmental approvals. We need to look at mining approvals going forward of your standard TSFs, waste dumps, undergrounds, and open pits, which will be going forward with mineralization. It's more of a traditional low sulfidation epithermal system, but it's overprinted by your intermediate, which is your polymetals, your zinc, your leads, and your copper. as well as VMS style mineralization on the peripherals. In the bottom right hand image, you can see we're sitting on the Chilean side of the border, which is the blue line. And then opposite the border, you have all the big mines, Cerro Negro, Cerro Vanguardia, and all the Pan American mines in the body rocks through there. So a bit of an overview on the infrastructure here. So the image in the bottom, you can see the crusher going through to the mill, the offices. We have an on-site assay lab. Every year we get this assay lab ISO certified, and we send 5% of all of our samples off-site to for QA/QC. This lab's been operating since 1995. We have stores, heavy vehicle workshops, and power. Our water comes from a large freshwater lake in the district. So we have about 800 litres a second of water rights. The mine only requires about 60 or 70 at operation. We have about 13 megawatts of installed power. Peak operations historically, it's only required 7. So we have more water and more power than is required and already installed on site. So as I said, this is a very advanced site with a low capital restart, as you don't have to install the mill again. Moving on to just a bit of an overview of the main Laguna Verde area. So you can see the blue dot, which is our mill, and the TSF next to it. You've got the main high-grade vein, underground veins of the Coyita, Yasna, Fabiola, Delia, Dagny, and the Delia Trinidad trend. Undergrounds, there's about 30 kilometres of underground development sitting in these underground mines and extremely high grades. You've got the Tatau open pit sitting behind the processing facility. Your ROM pad and crusher is sitting right on the pit crest. So very, very low strip and very easy to access this pit as to underpin a base load for the mill restart. We've started, I'll talk a bit about it, but we've really been focusing on drilling this last year on the Pegaso and Cristal area, which are relatively new discoveries. You know, as I mentioned, this is a 30-year mine history. We've actually actively been making many near mine discoveries within that 1 to 1.5 kilometers of the processing facility in areas that have been picked over for 30 years, driven over for 30 years. And that's sort of that discovery potential that we see in this belt of rocks. So touching now on that Coyita mine in those high grade undergrounds. So this ore body is about 1.4 kilometers long, subvertical, already significantly drilled out, infrastructure in place already, decline to a set position, minimal mining occurring up in the upper regions. It'll take about 700 meters to punch the decline down into the next lot of the ore body. Grades themselves and widths, pretty significant. 4.3 meters at 1900 grams silver equivalent, 3.2 meters at 1200, 3 meters at 2100 in the last hole on the ore body itself, on the plunge of the ore body. So extremely high grades sitting through the boiling zone of the ore bodies. This ore body here is running at about 900 grams per ton silver equivalent throughout the entire ore body, and hosts close to about 1 million tons of rock. So these are the style of ore bodies that we're looking at: linear, subvertical. The images on the left, you can see some of the infrastructure in place already. So this is on the second and third levels in the decline, and on the second level at the ore body. So, again, already meshed, already bolted. Your ventilation, your water, your power is already in place and still ready to go. Touching a little bit on one of our new discoveries, Pegaso 7, really quickly. So Pegaso 7 was drilled lightly by core mining in the late 90s, early 2000s. And what we're seeing here, it was really walked away from and not really understood. So 20 years later, we've come back and had another look at it. We've started drilling out the down plunge extent of the ore body. So on surface, this ore body goes for about 1.2 kilometers. We've only drilled 300 meters by 600 meters of the initial ore body. So this ore body still has significant room to actually grow to the north. We've only drilled out half of it right now. We put it in over the last year and a half from identifying it, drilling it. We put it into a maiden resource carrying about 6 million ounces silver equivalent and 342 grams per ton. Or for gold, it's running about 4.1 grams per ton gold equivalent. And again, I'm pointing to these are the styles of near mine mineralization that have been missed in the past that just needs another refresh and relook at. Moving out 7 kilometers away now to the Cerro Bayo district, we have one of the original mines that was mined by Core Mining. So they mined the Cerro Bayo underground mine. Historically, this is a 2 kilometer long ore body. They pulled about 600,000 ounces gold equivalent as ore body, extremely high grade. You'll notice most of these discoveries have only been found where there's outcropping rocks. The only exception is Marcela, slightly below cover, and they only found it when they were drilling water bores. So what we've come back through in the past year, and this is where our Greenfields generative team is focusing on this Cloudier Rail West Drought Master corridor through here. We've come through and we've started running geophysics across all this area to look underneath this 5 to 10 meter cover. You know, an ore body doesn't stop just because there's a little bit of cover there. You know, these ore bodies continue through. When we came through and did the geophysics, which I'll get into in a second, you know, we've identified these ore bodies undercover, still there and untested. I'll touch now on just a little bit of the Marcela, Wanako and Raoul ore bodies through this belt here, just to give you an example of what we're looking at. So this is the Marcela underground. It's a 600 meter long drilled out ore body over a depth of about 300 meters. Core Mining has come in, developed 4 or 5 levels, taken out a little stoping panel in the top here, and that's when they divested the project. They never got a chance to come through and mine everything else. So we're leveraging all this drilling that's been done historically, which totals close to about 900,000 meters of drilling. Again, significant grades, 2.4 meters at 640 grams, 2 meters at 1,300 grams, about 100 meters below the existing infrastructure. So really, you know, you've already got this information there. It's about coming through and just continuing the drill out and extending these ore bodies down. The image to the bottom left, this is the last level of the mine that was developed and never fired. So that's an example of what the ore body looks like down there and still in situ. Moving through to some of the open cuts that are in the district, the Raoul and the Wanako mine. Historically, as you can see on this bottom left image, what they've done instead of traditional open pits, they've literally just gotten onto the vein 5 meters wide and just barrel through the countryside for 500 meters, taking these veins down 20 meters. They've come through, drilled down 100 to 150 meters below surface, haven't mined it yet. So again, completely drilled out ore bodies for the last 30 years, different gold and silver price environment. We're now coming through and re-leveraging all this information, you know, free resource upgrades to put them into open pit and underground mines. And at Wanako too. Again, this is a 800 meter long ore body. Raoul is a 1,000 meter long ore body, completely drilled out. I'll touch now on this regional exploration. So this Raoul West Drought Master corridor was only really discovered in the last 2.5 years. The little Vita Secunda, Vita Madra and Percheron veins were identified by Core Mining. We've come through and identified everything to the west of this over the last 2 years. One of the prime examples, the Cloudier vein, is a 4 kilometer long vein. So this zone is 4 kilometers by about 2 kilometers east-west. Pretty significant ore bodies. Discovery outcrop of the Cloudier vein. There's a rock sitting at a gate at a farmer's paddock running 16,900 grams per ton silver equivalent. Every week we go out, the guys are continuing to extending the discovery of these veins. 3 weeks ago, they discovered the Montserrat, Sophia, and Tamara veins through here. This is a 1.2 kilometer long vein, still on surface, grades on surface up to 1.6% silver and 161 grams per ton gold on surface. So big significant veins that are completely not drill tested. We've gone through, as we mentioned, ran geophysics across these regions, and what we're seeing is you get an excellent response from the geophysics that point out the vein and the alteration sitting around the veins. The vertical extent of these ones are about 300 meters vertical. So these big veins go down fairly deep and can be traced for kilometers through the geophysics. What I mentioned before about these undercover areas around this Pampa La Pera area, this line of geophysics we ran through Pampa La Pera here. As mentioned, lo and behold, sitting just below cover, we identified a 300 meter by 300 meter anomaly, very strong anomaly, sitting under cover that has never been drill tested. So our initial orientation lines, just to see what the responses would look like, has generated significant targets already. Where the mine is sitting, we're sitting at about 111 million ounces and about 353 grams. So we're sitting comparatively to Santa Elena, but a bigger resource. Our aim is to continue growing this resource, to get into the same realm as your Zagaundas and your Imaculdas for Aya Gold and Silver and Pan American and those likes. So it's already a significant deposit and it's going to continue to grow. We've only really looked at probably about 25 to 30 square kilometers out of the 400 square kilometers. So we've only really touched on a tiny amount of the land holding over the last 30 years, and we'll continue to grow that going forward. All right, I'll roll into the Q&A now. The first question, do you have an all-in sustaining cost for Cerro Bayo? At the moment, we've just started the scoping study. So right now we're working out the open pit underground mine plans, and we'll have a better idea on all the sustaining cost come December when that study is finished. That study then will look at defining, yes, we have a 500,000 tonne per annum float plant, but the question is, do we leave it at that? Or do we upgrade it to 600, 700, 800, 900, even 1 million tonnes to match that? We have just gold and silver, but peripherally, we have a lot of polymetal projects. So we've got Los Domos and Emma projects, which are on the peripherals. Those projects, they have the gold and silver, but they're also running 10 to 15% zinc and lead, as well as 0.5% copper in them. So at some point, as they study, you will mine your gold and silver, and then you'll look at potentially putting extra circuits on the back end to extract your polymetals as additional credits on the back end. Historically, though, they've run a pretty low-cost operation. I believe the cutoff grade for Mandalay in 2016 was running about 160 grams per tonne silver equivalent for undergrounds and about 40 to 50 grams per tonne for open pits. Next question, what are your milestones for the next 12 months? Over the next 12 months, it's going to be an evolving beast effectively. So as I said, we've got that internal scoping study, which was aimed to come out around that December period. At the same time, we're looking at putting a resource update out in that December period as well. We'll have drilling and exploration results every 3 to 4 weeks on a rolling basis. Come probably January, post that scoping study, we'll have a bit more of a overview and a direction what the next 12 months of the company is going to look like, feeding into that full feasibility study, going into the FID, the final investment decision, probably at the end of 2026. Next question. Are these greenfield projects? No, as mentioned, they're all brownfields project. There's already 800 to 900,000 meters of drilling into the operations. So a lot of them is actually just leveraging data that's already in place, which is benefit to us. When you have to remember, when Core initially found these deposits and drilled them out, silver was sitting at probably $2 or $3, and gold was in the few $100 per ounces. Now it's a completely different environment. We can now go back, leverage and extract all this data that was never mined historically. And that's what we've been trying to tackle for the last year and a half, is this historic brownfields data. We haven't even touched, as I mentioned, onto most of the greenfields projects at the moment. Next question. Can I talk to the ability to convert inferred resources into M&I? Yes. So as I sort of pointed out in some of those images of Raoul and Wanako, most of them already drilled to 20 to 30 meter spacing. And when you look back at previous operators, Mandalay, they had a lot of them in NI43 reserves. So we've taken that more conservative approach as the new owner of the projects. So there's going to be a lot of parts that we can convert for free. We just took that conservative approach initially with the ability to upgrade pretty rapidly. So right now, the 9.8 million tons, we have about 1 million in indicated. I would say we'd be looking at that next resource update in December to convert as well as grow. Next question, infrastructure in place and condition investment needs. So the infrastructure in place, as mentioned, we have a 500,000 ton per annum gold silver float plant. The silver gold concentrate it produces is pretty highly sought after. Historically, it's had no penalties and it's very clean and high grade concentrate. So the infrastructure itself is in excellent condition. It was last operating in mid-2022. So yes, we have the float plant. Yes, we have water. Yes, we have power. We're also looking at putting renewable energies hub down in our region, which will lower our power costs even further. Our workforce comes from a town that sits about 15 kilometers from the mine site. So there's no camp. Everyone lives close to the mine site itself. Assay labs are on site, all the heavy vehicle workshops and everything on site. The mine itself was shut down at a solid point in time. So there was still 2 years worth of mill balls, 2 years worth of mill liners, chemicals. There's whole new Verde mills, control panels, all the underground fans and equipment. There's 30 or 40 underground fans sitting in the warehouse ready to restart that we don't have to buy again. The primary fans are still in the underground mines. So it's really a really quick, really rapid, really low capital restart for this operation. If there's no more questions, I think that's it.